too.
And Chris.
Okay, wow, boy, that's great. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting of Middleton Community Development Authority for October 14th, 2021 to order. And Abby, first starting with the roll call.
Farr.
Here.
Barker.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Oaks.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Is Barron here? I did not see Barron join, and Furlong is unavailable tonight.
Okay, all right, that's how it is. So, the first item is the approval of the minutes, and for September 22nd, 2021, need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I need a second.
Oaks will second.
Okay. Any questions or comments or corrections? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the CDA minutes for September 22nd, 2021, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so motion is approved unanimously. Item number 1 is a report back from the staff on 2022 budget proceedings, including information for the downtown marketing and events coordinator position. Abby.
Yes, at the last meeting, you asked me to check to be sure that Public Works had included the snow removal as a request in their operating budget, and they had, but since then, the Finance Committee has taken that out of their budget. So at least at this point, that would need to stay in the CDA's budget. They have not made any other changes to the recommendations from the CDA. So it looked like they were supportive of all of those items, including the new position. I did talk with Taylor Brown, who is the Economic Development Director in Sun Prairie, about their position. Their downtown marketing and event coordinator position is actually a full-time position. She was gonna talk with their business improvement district or bid manager when that person is back in the office to learn more about the recruitment efforts, because that was led by their bid manager when they went out to advertise the position. And I think at the last meeting, we had just said it might be helpful to know like whether they had any issues recruiting the position. But actually, as it turns out, they did modify theirs, so it's a full-time position. They said that the position fund is split in terms of funding between economic development, which is paid for through the tourism department, the room tax dollars, the downtown bid, and then a portion of the position is paid by the Parks and Recreation Department. They had the farmers market manager as part of that role, but they determined that it was too much to have them doing all those things, the downtown event, Parks and Rec, et cetera. So they split that off into a 10 to 15 hour a week LTE position. So the farmers market's not managed by their full-time event coordinator position. They did do a pretty wide reach when they advertised. Halftime did not work for them, even in 2020 when they adjusted the hours. They have had great candidates. They've been very happy with the results. But since the beginning of 2020, they have hired 3 people for the position. The first was headhunted away after a few months. The second ended up transitioning into the part-time farmers market manager role. And now they're on the third person, and it's a full-time job description, but without the farmers market. So that might just give us an idea of what, we might be looking at in terms of recruitment. I am waiting until the council finalizes the budget until we would advertise the position. And I'll be sure that a couple of CDA members are included on the interviews. So if you are interested in being part of that, just shoot me an email and let me know. Otherwise, I'll start bugging a couple of you to join.
Any questions for Abby?
Kathy has her hand raised.
I have 2 questions, Abby. Do you know what kind of farmers market they have? Is it a big farmers market? I have never been to Sun Prairie for their farmers market. I wouldn't know how that would compare to something that small if we were to do that. And my second question Oh, the position, according to what I'm seeing for the timeline for the construction of the Stone Horse Green would be late summer, fall, that it'd be completed.
Hopefully earlier, but probably more realistically, yes.
So how does that affect the timing of the putting this out for hire? Are there other events that would?
Well, I think we should get somebody started at the beginning of the year if we can, because we want to have that full program and that full schedule already filled up and coordinated by the time the Stone Horse Green's open.
Good, good.
It looks like their farmer's market might actually be on Saturday mornings from 7 to noon. And I have to drive to Sun Prairie to pick up a coat for my son this weekend. So I'll just go check it out while I'm there, Kathy.
Oh, okay. But if you're not making a special trip, that's all.
I have to go anyway.
Okay. And then the money that we had from the Madison Community Foundation, and if the Stone Horse Green opens late summer, whatever, would it be like a 12-month that we'd have for that, or would it would have to be spent within 2022, or how would that work? Do you know?
For the position, you mean?
No, the events, the funding, the grant we got from Madison.
Oh, okay. It needs to be spent. It cannot start being spent until the green is open, and then we have a 1 year to spend it.
Oh, perfect.
1 year of programming.
After it's open. That's great. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions, Parabi, please raise your hands. I don't see any raised hands. Any other questions, Parabi? Great job, Abby. So this is more for information. So, okay, so item number 2 needs, this is the Edward Jones lease renewal and request for 1 year extension. I guess need a motion to approve. It's a small amount there.
So I would like for the CDA, I mean, well, we don't really need a motion to approve the lease that's already been negotiated. But
Okay.
what Edward Jones is also adding in is they would like to extend for another lease beyond the 5-year term. And I had just, this would be an opportunity for the CDA to look at lease rates in other similarly situated buildings before you agree to extend at, I think they were proposing $1,000 a month. And so I took a look, I was looking at some of the other rates, and the two that I found that I'm not sure if they're really comparable, but the Middleton Center building, that's obviously brand new construction and it's pretty high end real estate. That's $35 per square foot, and that includes utilities. And then Parmenter Center, which is the office building that's up the street on Parmenter Street near the Conservancy. That building is also pretty new. It's a somewhat different location. They're charging $16.50 a square foot, but the advertisement that I found on LoopNet, it didn't show whether that included utilities in the rent or not. Our lease rate is just under $18 a square foot, and it does include utilities. However, I just learned that there is a new business that's going to be taking the space where Marilyn's salon has operated for a long time in the old Opera House building. And the business is called Little Pop Color Shop. It's a gift and party goods store. And I was thinking that that would probably be a pretty darn good comparable if the woman who I spoke to on the phone the other day would be willing to share information about her lease. That might be a good comparable for us to take a look at. So I guess what I'm saying is I would recommend holding off at this time on extending for the extra year until we can get information on the Parmenter Center, whether utilities are included, see if we can get the lease rate for the Opera House first floor space, and if anyone else has any other comparables, send them my way. And Kari has her hand raised.
I just wanted to chime in and say, I completely agree. I think it would be nuts to sign a lease for 10 years. I see no reason why we should do that. I can't imagine if Edward Jones ever left that we would have a hard time filling that space. And I don't think it would really benefit the city at all to do that. And 5 years is a long time to sign a lease for. So I think that sounds good. And I agree with you, Abby. It's smart thinking to think about that Maryland's and see if they'll let us know what that comes in at. And, you know, this is just around the corner.
I agree with Abby and I agree with Kari. If somebody disagrees, raise your hands now. Okay, we will move on to the next item then. So the next item is discussion and follow-up items from Senior Center and Hubbard Activity Center building tour of some. Yes, okay, go ahead, Abby, that's you.
Yeah, so a few members went on a tour of the Senior Center and Hubbard Activity Center. So I just included this on the agenda to see if anyone had any follow-up items or any thoughts based on what you saw during the tour. I did want to flag one item that Kieran was really interested in working on that came up during the tour, and that was mobility, additional mobility options for senior citizens and making sure that senior citizens in our community, if they aren't driving anymore, that they have transportation and mobility options. And I'm going to be talking to the Commission on Aging at their meeting on Monday afternoon. So I'll get their thoughts on that too and see if they had any ideas about how to improve that. And Dan has his hand raised.
Dan Barker.
Thank you. Yeah, just a couple of things. To add on to Kieran's point, it was shared that during the day, it can be challenging for some of the seniors to find parking there. With the, I think it's a 2-hour restriction. I forget the woman who's running the center's name, forgive me. She shared that it can be tough for some of those folks to kind of watch the clock and get in and take advantage of some of the programming there. My biggest takeaway from that tour, if I may, was that the upstairs activity center, it's due to the way in its former being a bank, there's just not a lot we can do with that space. I do think that there's a lot of opportunities for the basement area, and I'm not sure how well utilized that is, but there's a lot of space down there. So again, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Thank you.
And I agree with Dan. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of space there. So that's absolutely right. And I agree with you. Now, in the past, many seniors have complained the snow removal around the parking lot, especially where there's a handicap parking. And I don't know if that's still an issue, but that is something which I have heard from more than once. So I guess I forward that note to either Mike or whoever, and I don't know if we still have that issue or that's already taken care of. But that does set up a, adds to the mobility issue. Mike, your hand is up. Mike is.
Yes,
go ahead.
thanks, Mayor. Can you all hear me?
Yes, Mike.
Okay.
Very clear.
I just wanted to let Dan know that there is 4-hour parking in the lot, the senior center lot. It's not 2 hours.
Thanks, Mike.
And it was designed that way or established that way specifically for the seniors so that they could be there for a morning program and stay for lunch. Or go to lunch and stay for afternoon programs.
Interesting. All right. Well, that certainly changes the impression I got. Thank you.
Excellent, Mike. All right, Kari.
I was just going to say that and I'm sorry I couldn't make that tour, but it seems like if people can't make it into the lot or if they're on the street or whatever, it seems like it wouldn't be a big deal to be able to get laminated cards for the senior center to get printed for regular users if they could just put on their dashboard and they could get 4-hour parking even if they were on the street. If that's an impediment, I just don't think that should be a a big hindrance for people using those services.
Dan, did you have a comment?
I did. I just wanted to add, if we, I don't know, just one item to kind of think about and consider is there any way we could kind of help out those folks to get to the senior center? We talked a little bit about that van that goes around for Dane County that helps people get there, but I don't know where the money would come, but it sure would be nice if we could help some of those folks get to the senior center so they don't have to drive. That's all. Thanks.
Anyone else? Kathy? Kathy Olson.
Sorry, Kathy, I think I accidentally muted you. I was trying to mute myself and then your picture shifted and I muted you.
Yeah, that you say that, Abby, but my question is, as far as the CDA and the seniors transportation to the senior center, is that more of a senior center commission on aging kind of issue? More so than a CDA? Or is it something that we can work with the senior center on, or how do you see that work playing out?
Well,
Yeah, that's a great question. Go ahead, Dan.
That was the mayor talking, but yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Go ahead, Mayor.
I was going to ask Mike, I think from what I remember, the snow clearing is, I don't know if that's a city responsibility or who clears up that snow there. So
The
that
snow
has been,
from in front of the senior center, on the sidewalks, that is cleared through the CDA budget currently.
okay. And how about the parking lot?
The parking lot is cleared by Public Works trucks, and the sidewalk for all of the downtown sidewalks are adjacent to city properties are cleared by the CDA contract for snow removal.
Okay, yeah, the bigger issue has been parking lot, so, okay. Yeah, I guess it's something the Public Works Commission on Aging, and I don't know if CDA can play some role, that's fine. Good.
Well, the
good
parking
point.
lot has problems because of the downtown renters have the ability to park there with their parking permits. These are people who rent above the buildings that are bounded by Parmenter, Elmwood, and Hubbard. There are several apartments above there, as well as apartments above Sofra and Regal Find. And those apartments all have downtown permit parking in the city lots, and they usually pick the senior center lot. So every morning, if you go by there early like I do, you'll see 7 cars parking. Those are the residents of those apartments parking there, and that creates a problem for Public Works during the winter unless they move to another parking lot.
And Mike, from what I remember, you looked into it and there were some issues. They had some, yeah, I don't know. I know you communicated with those people, but it
I
didn't.
did. I asked them to for their email addresses so that we could communicate with them when we'd like them to move their cars. And that was a couple of years ago when we had our last major storm.
So we could, well, that's the least they can do. And if they don't, I guess we could, we have those citation authority, I suppose, that could be used, right?
Yeah, we'd have to provide a notice in their car for them to move it. That's what I had done, asking them to move their cars.
Okay, so that is something which somehow need to be sorted out. Kathy, you have your hand up?
Yeah, Mike, was that for 24/7 that they can park there, or was it only when senior center is not in operation?
It's 24/7. Most of
Okay.
them work during the day though, and they take their cars elsewhere. So it's mostly overnight that you'll see the cars parked there.
Do we want to revisit that? Because I do think it's important that the seniors do get parking. Would it be possible that if there's like a snow emergency that they would have to find alternate parking? I don't know where it would be, but on the street, on the alternate side parking days, if there's a snow emergency. And then, Gurdeep, I wasn't speaking so much of the snow removal. I was talking about what Kieran said about no longer driving and getting to the senior center, not parking because of snow. So that's, and whether that's something the CDA needs to be involved in with the Commission on Aging, or how we partner, or if we partner. So that was just my question on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Kathy,
thank
to
you.
answer your first question, the 24/7 for the lots was to try to keep them from parking on the street where
Mhm.
we have the snow plowing operations on a more regular basis.
Okay,
It's on a rare occasion that Public Works can't get the lot plowed when those vehicles are there overnight, which is when some of that early morning snow removal is being
yeah,
done.
right. Okay, well, just a thought, so.
So Mike, could we restrict them to certain part of the parking lot, which is away from the senior center?
We could, we have to establish parking spaces for the residents. The problem is that they're not parking there all the time. So if you did establish a space, then it would look like it's their space.
Yeah,
And much of the
Don't
time
want to
they're
do
not there.
Okay. Okay, thank you. It will be good if we could get their emails and send them, mass email, hey, please don't park it there when there's a snow. Thank you. Dan?
Thank you. This is from Mike. How come we gave those people parking spaces in the first place?
The idea was to try to encourage downtown residents of those older historic buildings.
And do we think now, like with rents and the way they are, that we still need to do that? I'm not trying to take away people's parking spots. I just think it's a pretty nice plum to have to get that. Other places I lived in cities, I'm not granted that. Go ahead.
The historic buildings didn't require parking back when they were built in the around the turn of the century. So, that's the conundrum. Though there was not required parking for those buildings at the time.
Kathy?
my question is, if they are getting parking with their rent, that would, to me, signal that they may be paying higher rent because parking is included. Like we do over on Terrace, on the parking lot we own there, that the other apartments are using, there is a fee that we do charge for that. So it's just a thought that, is that something that we would like to look into further, or just leave it lay as it is right now? So.
I think that sounds like a good idea, Mike. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, those station apartments, whatever they're called,
It's minimal.
Yes, Kari.
Thank you. I guess, and again, I'm sorry I wasn't able to be at the tour, but I would like a little quantification, if we have it, of how much of a problem this really is for the seniors. Is it only occasional? Is it frequent? Is it all the time? Because your response should really be proportional to the magnitude of the problem. And I don't really have a sense of that right now.
That's a good point. It's when it snows. So I don't think it's that frequent, but it just, it was 2 or 3 complaints. Mike, is that from what I remember? I just forwarded to you. So those were the only people.
That must have been a couple of years ago. It's been a while. I don't remember. But
Okay.
it's a very infrequent problem. I'd hate to penalize the owners and the renters of the historic buildings because, like I said, there were no city regulations requiring parking at that time. Very different from Middleton Station, which was a new development where the regulations are in place to require parking.
Okay.
Okay, so you want to leave the sleeping dogs lie then for now?
That would be
Yeah,
Well, yeah, unless it-
It's a very infrequent problem. I don't think we have, and on occasion when we have major snowfall, I believe we can contact them. I haven't done that for a couple of years, but we've been able to do that in the past.
And
Okay,
again,
well,
yeah, it seems like for this infrequent occasion, if the senior center is adequately staffed with volunteers, it could probably be that somebody could run out, help somebody and park their car and fetch it. You know, like there are human to human solutions for some of these things if they happen only occasionally that I would advocate exploring before we make a policy.
excellent idea. Human to human solutions are always welcome. Thank you. Kathy, you have.
one just final question. Do you know if they have like tags to identify those cars are part of the apartment complex or the apartment building?
They
So they're
do.
not getting ticketed? Okay, very good, thanks.
Okay, all right. So we move on to the last item of the evening, Business Improvement District information. Kathy, Abby has done a phenomenal job in sending that article from that municipality magazine. I did go through this, looked at all the 4 cities, and Wisconsin has over 80 of these business improvement districts. Eau Claire seems to have 4 by itself there, and it's interesting. In Wisconsin, 50% of those districts, their population is less than 25,000. So anyway, I'm not. So I also read your other information too, which you had sent. So I'm sure everybody else would have read all the information as well. So Abby, you want to give a brief introduction, and then Kari Oaks has her hand up. So.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful. So the way that I stumbled upon Dr. Chuck Law is I remembered that there was an overview of bids, and there was like a website that was maintained by the UW Extension, the Community Development Department, about bids. And so I went to look for that page, and all the information was really out of date. So I contacted the person who was listed, and he indicated that when this gentleman had retired from the UW Extension, they kind of dropped the program. So this guy, Dr. Chuck Law, seems to still be the statewide expert. He does speaking engagements. He's come and spoken at the library before as part of his role, but now he's retired. And I thought it would be helpful to have him come to a meeting and provide a presentation, and then also have an opportunity for CDA members to ask questions. But he wants to charge a fee. He didn't let me know what it would be. I'm sure it would be reasonable. So if that would be something that would be of interest, I can try to set it up, but it won't work for the November meeting because he's going to be out of town at our November meeting. And we could invite the DMVA to join as well.
I think, anyway, I like to get the input that it would be a great thing to have, but do you think our businesses would want to pay the lowest fee, which I found was, well, $1.50 per $1,000. So, and so you're talking about, you know, if you take the average price, I don't know, 400,000. So you're talking about a fair amount of money. So right now, a lot of those businesses are getting that free from the city, what they really want to pay for it. So that's my question. So maybe whoever wants to speak now, we could even ask Andrea, and if it's okay with everyone else, and Jessica, that, you know, how excited would you be, and what kind of a, you know, response they're likely to get from the businesses. But before I go there, Kathy Olson has her hand up.
I just wanted to say that early on when Middleton Center was just getting started, Terrence Wall had brought up the question to me, and that there might be interest in that. And that's the only impetus that I have for wanting to discuss that if there's interest from the businesses. So that's, I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Okay. And he will be the one who would have to pay, I think, the big share of that money, because he has from Grace Coffee going up to maybe 10 or 15 businesses there. So I don't know how excited, well, I don't know.
And I don't know if
Terrence,
he continues to have interest or not. So it would just have to be
Yes.
a conversation with
So
him.
does somebody want to check, and is he willing to pay? So,
I can reach out to Terrence and chat with him about it.
okay. So Andrea and, well, or Jessica, either one of you, whoever want to speak first.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with Andrea. So Andrea, go ahead, please.
All right, thank you. The DMBA is interested in exploring the potential for a bid as an option for how we want to operate going forward, and for a number of reasons. There's just so much momentum and opportunity downtown, and as our DMBA, which is a fully volunteer-based, run by business owners, in this past 2 years are, not a good barometer of the kind of energy and time we have to be spending on stuff. It's been a really challenging past 2 years, as it has been for everybody. But as we were evaluating strategically going forward, what are some options to harness some of all the passion that we all have and turn all of the love for downtown into action? The bid was an opportunity, a potential thing to explore that came up. The DMBA's funding basically comes from a wine walk. And we are virtually down to next to nothing left because we haven't had a wine walk in the last, 2.5 years, 2 years. So funding wise, our hands are really tied. There's not a whole lot we can be doing to help support our businesses and continue to grow up the momentum in bringing people downtown. And then just in terms of the time involved for businesses to really step up and take a role in helping harness all of this, the opportunity to have a paid position that many of the bids do, like in the Sun Prairie document, which Abby sent around, which I thought was so interesting to read, the way that downtown Madison works, DMI. There's just a lot of great models that we're interested in learning. What can we do? When I was involved in the board on Monroe Street Merchants Association, we did evaluate becoming a bid for a very specific reason at that time, where we were getting ready to raise money to get marketing plans in place to stave off the projected business declines when the road work was under construction for 11 months on Monroe Street. We opted not to pursue the bid route at that time there, just because the time involved, all of the bid, it's an all or nothing, it's all in, all the businesses in the geography, my understanding is they're all in. And so, to get everybody bought in, that was just too lengthy of a time frame. So that organization went to a dues-based model. But just from a sustainability ongoing perspective, I think there's a lot of interesting benefit that a bid could provide. My expectation is that the property owners would pass this on to the businesses. So I'm not sure that I'm expecting Terrence would be paying for this. If he wants to help subsidize, that's okay, but I'm expecting he's going to pass this through to the business owners in the CAM that we pay, which, we're paying for lots of other marketing support and all the shared services of the building, in our case, in Middleton Center anyway. How much we can afford to pay, that's a separate question. It was interesting to see the mill rate that Abby provided, because, prior to seeing that, I didn't know what the different mill rates were. We were just exploring this on the DMBA side to reach out to people that I know, associates that I know on the DMI as an example. So I don't know that we're opposed to this in terms of, I don't want to rule it out that this isn't a direction we want to go. I think it's an interesting opportunity because there is so much potential coming in downtown Middleton. And it would be really helpful to have a paid position, among other things, marketing dollars, just the whole, when I saw that whole budget from the Sun Prairie example, it was just, it was exciting to me to see that this could be a potential for our businesses. And then the other thing I would just throw out, is again, strategically, as we're looking at, the DMBA is looking at our strategy for the year, it's not just the businesses in downtown, We have a lot of affiliated entities. We're trying to be more cohesive across, the municipal, the nonprofits, the businesses, we're all the same downtown. And I think maybe something like this could also help us approach it from that perspective as well, setting priorities together, running joint events, collaborating. It just seems like this could be a good opportunity for us, instead of having a CDA separate from a DMBA, separate from a this, separate from a that. There's just a lot of opportunity for collaboration and a lot of interest in doing it.
Mayor, you are muted.
That's wonderful, Andrea. So great to hear from you that you are interested and you are positive. I think that will make a huge difference if you are behind it. And then Abby, you will talk to Terrence and see what he thinks. And I think let's hear from Jessica.
Thanks, Mayor. I have to agree 100% with everything that Andrea has said. I think my learning curve for this is pretty big, and to kind of, Andrea and I spent some time after Abby, your article came out, we had looked at that, and to really understand how you take it apart as a business owner and what, well, one, the benefits that you're getting, but then also to see what that would cost potentially. Like we just kind of ran some numbers as a hypothetical situation. And when we ran the numbers, it's really feasible, at least for when I looked at it from my perspective and square footage. And so I think that some of the education that comes along with learning what this is and what the cost really would be really important for people to understand, so that it seems approachable and achievable and isn't off-putting because of all the things that we've all run up against with the pandemic. But to see the benefits out of that. And I think when Andrew and I ran numbers hypothetically, the amount that I would be paying a month was like, that was an amazing amount to be paying and getting all these benefits for downtown Middleton. The other thing I was going to just mention as a strategic part of how to maybe approach or make it more approachable for business owners is to make it so that it could be something that could be paid monthly, but that sounds like that'll be through the landlord anyway, which maybe I'm assuming it would be just pushed through with the rent payments or lease payments. So that makes it more feasible also, rather than a lump sum that would be required per year. So again, my learning curve has been huge, but I think it sounds like a really exciting opportunity to take a look at.
Wow, that's good. That's good. Any questions for Andrea or Jessica? I'm pleased that you're on board, so that's great. So then, any
I guess
questions?
just one last comment on that. It, based on the estimates, that these are all like huge assumptions that we're making in terms of what might it cost, and also the costs, I assume, that were included in the Sun Prairie document are based on what's the budget that they're trying to raise. So, then you get into the whole setting of priorities, budgeting for events, there's a lot of work that goes into that, obviously. So we have not reached out to all the businesses yet. This is a topic that we're starting to get feedback on. Of course, it's going to be hard for anybody to say, yes, we're in, until we know what the cost is likely to be. So these are some major assumptions that we're making, but what we're saying is we are certainly interested in exploring this as a potential.
Well, and I guess just to make sure that everyone on the CDA is aware, I mean, this would have to be a self-imposed bid. So the property owners would have to vote to accept it. It's not something that the city can just impose on businesses. So I would think that the property owners and the businesses would be very involved with setting the amount and setting the budget, would have seats on the board. It would have to be very inclusive of everyone.
Can I ask, Abby, who takes the lead on that, organizing all of that?
Well, Chuck mentioned that could be a role that the CDA could play in terms of like helping to facilitate the establishment, but that, he gave a cautionary tale. He said it doesn't want to look or appear that the city or the CDA is trying to force it on the businesses.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I almost think that the best next step would be to try to pull the DMBA and the CDA and find a date and time that would work for you all for a Zoom with Chuck, because he knows more about this stuff than probably anybody in the state. And then everyone would have an opportunity to ask questions and hear the same presentation. And we could invite Terrence and some of the other bigger property owners downtown too.
So what do you think, Andrea and Jessica? You think that's the next step? Yeah, I guess you need to have buy-in from the businesses, otherwise it's not going to go.
Can I ask what percentage of buy-in we have to have? I'm new to this. I'm learning how these BIDs work, but does it have to be, is it all or nothing? Or is it a certain percentage?
Don't think it's all or nothing. I'm sorry, I don't have the percentage off the top of my head. I can try to pull it up.
There's quite a bit of flexibility from what I read from the municipality magazine in those 4 cities which they picked.
Yeah, I thought it was all or nothing, or the majority. Otherwise, that would be a potential issue then, because then you have a small number of businesses ending up paying,
Yeah, so
just something that would have to be worked through. I'm not saying we wouldn't do it, but it's just another thing to work through.
Yeah,
So
one of the things that the article said is that they, when you're setting this up, the best practice is to go out and meet with everyone and figure out who supports it and try to draw the boundaries in such a way that you're including the people who are supportive. But I kind of agree with you, Andrea, that it really should be all or nothing. Because I don't think it's fair to rely on 3 businesses to do all the work. I really think we should incorporate the whole downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree. Otherwise, there will be freeloaders, right? I don't think we want those.
And does this, I think the Sun Prairie one included the apartment buildings as well. It's not just businesses. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, because this ends up having benefit for the property owners in terms of leasing, because it's building the demand and interest and providing a lot of marketing support, which has a benefit in drawing the residents into the area as well.
I think those are all good questions for Chuck then too, about how we would, how we could communicate this and make it appeasing to, well, if our goal is to get all the businesses in, there's a way of communicating, and I'm sure that'll be more effective than others.
Okay, any other input from any of the members? So Abby, the next step is you have a conversation with Terrence, how excited he is, because if he doesn't want to get in there, that's going to be an issue. And Andy and Jessica, you will talk to DMBA members and see how excited they are. And then we can think about inviting Chuck at some stage, and then we can decide whether to move forward or not. So that's what I see. Any other questions or comments? Please raise your hand. I don't see any raised hands. Okay. Anybody else want to have final thoughts?
Can I ask one question from the beginning? And sorry, I was a couple minutes late. The farmers market discussion, is that part of the Stonehorse Green Plan? Was I hearing that right? To have a farmers market manager?
Oh,
green budget?
Well, that is one of the potential events that could be organized by the new part-time position that the CDA is hiring in early 2022.
Mm-hmm.
What I was mentioning is that Sun Prairie has a full-time downtown marketing and event position, and they have a part-time farmers market manager. They separated it out. It used to be included, but they separated it because they must have a lot going on in Sun Prairie. I got to get down there because they said that it was too much for one person to handle.
Do they have to feed the groundhog too?
Yeah, the groundhog was listed in their operating plan. That's a big event.
Okay, well, this was a very productive meeting. So Abby, you know what the next steps are? Any final words of wisdom before we ask the motion to adjourn. Okay, so need a motion to adjourn. Wow, everybody's so
I will
happy.
make the
All
motion
right.
to adjourn.
If it was close by there, I could say, hey, let's go, let's have some cake and coffee, but I guess we're all too far away from, I'm here on the west, well, Northern California. So you guys are all separated there. And Katie, how are you? Everybody's feeling well? Things are going good?
Pretty good.
All right, you look good. Okay, need a second. Well, Katie will second it, I think.
I will
so.
second.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye.
I.
Hi.
Anyone opposed? So we are adjourned. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.